I just finished installing an auxiliary fuel tank for the Chinese mini excavator, and I wanted to just kind of show you guys what I did here. One of my big complaints with this machine is the fuel tank here. Actually, there's two complaints. Give me a second to get up in here. Ugh. So my two complaints for this fuel tank, so that's the fuel tank and that's the hydraulic tank. You could very easily put fuel in here when there's supposed to be only hydraulic fluid. So I didn't like and they use the same caps. They're not labeled. It's just not a real good system to keep the fuel separate from the hydraulic fluid. And that fuel tank is only 1.5 gallons of fuel that you can put in this machine. It is basically nothing. You'll go through 1.5 gallons of fuel in no time. So I added this big tank here. This is a 7-gallon, nice, I guess, is that billet aluminum? I don't really know. But it's an aluminum tank, not super polished, but it's somewhat shiny. And I added, hopefully you guys can see here, I put some brackets in here. Yes, it doesn't look pretty. That doesn't really bother me a whole lot. This cab, so anyone knows if they're looking at buying one of these machines, the cab here is made out of really thin steel. So this is more of a FOPS, falling object protection, than a ROPS, rollover protection. I would not want to roll this machine over after seeing how thin that metal is up there. So I just had to get a bigger tank put in this thing. This is not acceptable. And I plan on using this machine in a commercial, industrial basis here, 8-10 hours a day, every day. And I had to have a bigger tank. So this tank, I think, was around like $200. I have it plumbed in with a valve and a hose. This was the original hole for the latch. You could lock this thing if you wanted. I'm not going to do that. And then you just push this down, pull the hose out a little bit, and that's good enough for me. That fits I don't have any problems with that. The valve's right here, ready for me to turn the fuel on or turn the fuel off. So very simple there. And then this was the hard part. I had to make a piece of steel here so that I can adapt this. There was a screen with another cap like this one here down there, of course, and it was just not really something that I wanted. I didn't want to drill into the cap. The cap is the vent. So I tapped into this tank, so I have 8.5 gallons of fuel that I can put into this machine and run through it, which should be more than enough for a day's worth of work. So I cut a piece of steel and then drilled and tapped another hole there for the hose barb is what it's called. And then I drilled 4 more holes for the bolts. I used some red RTV. It's debatable whether that is can be used for diesel fuel. We're going to find out. I wanted to tap into this original tank just so that I could also keep my fuel gauge. So my fuel gauge is over here, and it should be, actually it's this one. This one right here, that's the fuel gauge. I wanted to still use that because this tank here, there's no way for me to know how full it is without sticking a stick in there. And I know some people are also thinking, that's maybe 4 inches, maybe 5 inches from the top. How do you fill this? So I have a little pump that goes on a 5-gallon fuel can. And this is the little pump here. It's just, I think it's 4 AA batteries, and it actually works really, really well. I just put the can on the seat and then take the hose here and push that up into the tank, and it has an automatic shutoff and works great. So that is how I'm going to fill this. You don't have to tip the can or anything. So it's pretty easy filling this thing up, actually. So that was kind of the biggest tank I was willing to put into this machine. They have other ones. I could have tried to mount something up here and then just a fuel line down, but I'd had to take apart the air conditioner and remove that headliner there. I just didn't really want to have to do this. And I would prefer the vertical tank just because, well, my first preference would be up here because this is out of my line of view. But you'd probably have to cut a hole in the roof with the cap and seal it and everything to be able to fill it. Then you'd have to fill it from outside, and then that little neck there, if that was outside the cab, it could get knocked off. It's the safest place for this fuel tank is actually in the cab here. It's not anywhere else outside of the machine. I've seen guys mount them behind the seat. I'm maybe 5'8", 5'9", so not super tall, but I want to have lots of room here to work the controls and run stuff. So I didn't really want it behind the tank or behind the seat there. There was another one that would fit in this space in here, which that probably would have worked, but then I would lose access to that, to the bottom, I don't know, probably bottom half of that window. And I think that was like 17 gallon. It was huge. So even bigger than this thing. I could turn that whole wall right there into a fuel, all for diesel fuel. But this was the best thing I could come up with. I'd love to hear what you guys think, if there's anything better. This is just the best way I think I could do this and still use the original tank. So I would have a fuel gauge. So when the fuel tank, when it starts getting low over on the readout there, it will, I know that this tank down here is basically full, or starts getting from full to empty, that I only have 1.5 gallons, and that main tank will be used as a reserve tank, and then this one will be the main fuel tank. So there you go. That's my upgrade for the fuel situation on the Chinese mini excavator. I again would wish they would have put a much bigger tank in this machine to begin with. I'd like to see 5 to 10 gallons at least. And you could run this thing. I could pretty easily run this machine pegged wide open for the whole day. So hope everyone enjoyed my video. Thanks for watching, and we will see you all in the next one.